연유 어부스도 니라임을 여고 인도 수조고 오벤겐네 한미 지츠후메 tsugo 조주 시세포. I am Reverend Dr. Norma J. Turner, NST. I am an evidential medium. I began taking classes shortly after I joined the Spiritualist movement. And a couple years after I had been a spiritualist, I began taking classes in mediumship. Mediumship involves talking to the dead. When I first heard that everybody could be, or anybody could be a medium, I was a little taken aback. I thought, oh, sure, right. But I decided to take classes anyway and see how I could develop spiritually. As it happened, it took a long time for me to develop that kind of trust in myself, to be able to be convinced that, yes, I was talking with the dead. And it was affirmed, validated by people to whom I was giving messages. Mediumship is the process by which an individual is able to tune in vibrationally with spirits on the other side, those who have crossed over. It is not the same as psychics, the work that psychics do. All mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are mediums. Psychics are able to get in touch with the inner you, with your patterns, with your personality, with your consciousness, if you will. Whereas with mediumship, when you are speaking to that person, there is some of that psychic ability that is there. But at the same time, we are listening to the spirit, that third party in the conversation, who is giving information to me, and then I will give it to the person who is awaiting that message or greeting or whatever it may be. Understanding mediumship does take a great deal of confidence, and I think it helps that I'm a little right-brained as well, because I understand the notion of hunches and intuitive learning and being able to learn and work with people on that intuitive side and to be a little less concrete. There's no way of proving that one is a medium unless you are able to give the evidence, to be able to describe the person, to tell what the person was like, perhaps, describing the personality, or by giving insights into what that person was like, what the person did, and the relationship of that person to the sitter. Mediumship can be very healing, especially for those who have lost someone close to them. And so therefore, mediumship, that is the reason I became a medium. And that is because I could see the healing that could occur with mediumship. I'm a spiritualist minister here in Phoenix, Arizona. I was ordained 6 years ago and set about right away starting my church, which is called Spiritualist Living Center, part of the National Association of Spiritualist Churches. Spiritualism is a different type of religion. Actually, it is a science, philosophy, and religion. We believe in essentially the communication with the dead. It is a movement that has really been around for a very long time, although the modern spiritualist movement began in the 1860s. And that is when many other religions were formed in Western New York. Spiritualism as a science is called that because it is something that we feel we know. We affirm these truths. We don't have to believe in them. And it is a philosophy because once you are a spiritualist and you are following the principles of spiritualism, your whole life changes because you're very aware of the role of spirituality and of spirits in your life. It is a religion as such because we do have services and events. We have celebrations, and at times it is a very fun-filled, joyful type of religion. We don't have any major laws or commandments that we have to follow, but the principles that we all agree to have to do with spirit. We believe in infinite intelligence. We believe that the phenomena of nature, both physical and spiritual, are expressions of infinite intelligence. The third principle is that we affirm that a correct understanding of such expressions and living in accordance therewith constitute true religion. Now, the next two really summarize what makes us different from many other denominations and religions. We affirm that the existence and personal identity of the individual continue after the change called death. Because we believe or understand and acknowledge that, then we affirm that communication with the so-called dead is a fact, scientifically proven by the phenomena of spiritualism. We believe that the highest morality is contained in the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And we affirm the moral responsibility of the individual to obey or disobey the nature's physical and spiritual laws. And that is how we ensure our own happiness or unhappiness. We affirm that the doorway to reformation is never closed against any soul here or hereafter. And the last one is that we affirm that the precepts of prophecy and healing are divine attributes proven through mediumship. I grew up in a Catholic family, and as a result, went to Catholic school during grade school, high school, and on into college, actually. It was in the 4th grade. I was 10 years old, and the sister who was teaching us had us all write to the different communities, getting information. And that cemented my desire. I wanted to be a nun. I was going to be a nun. That was everything that I knew lay ahead. And I joined the sisters when I was 17 years old and went through the postulate, the novitiate, the scholasticate, which is when I started college. I was part of the community for almost 20 years, and I truly enjoyed it, even though there were times when I found myself truly growing up as a woman and as a member of a spiritual community. Eventually, though, in time, I guess I would say my ideas changed. And despite my great love of the community, I found that I wanted to leave. Different things had happened. And, it's interesting when people say very easily, why did you leave? It's very complicated because this was my lifestyle. But I think the actual reason was I was just too idealistic. And so I had all the shoulds in my mind about how people should act, what they should be doing, all of these things. And I held myself to a very high standard, but eventually I found that I just wasn't flexible enough and accepting enough. And I did not feel that I could communicate with them, especially about some of the things I was involved in. So I did make the decision after a lot of prayer, took a special retreat down in Tucson to try to figure out what did I want. And as a result, I did make the decision to leave. Probably the hardest thing in my life up to that point. And it necessitated my, first of all, talking to all the people at the Mother House, talking to regional directors, talking to my friends, and that was all very painful. And then the biggest piece was writing a letter to the Pope. We were a canonical community, and so everything big that happened there had to come from through the Pope. So I did leave the community. It was a major change in lifestyle, and I found also that I carried the vows with me. I never broke my vows. When I look back on my spiritual development, I would refer to it as a theophilosophical tapestry. I have found that there is truth in so many different religions, and there were many factors that all worked upon my life to bring me from one place to the next as I followed my path of development. I was raised in a Catholic family. I was bound and determined to be a sister, and from that I led a life 20 years as a religious sister of charity of the Blessed Virgin Mary. But then things happened in life, and I found myself changing in my thoughts and what I was about. And I think most significant was the disappointment I felt in the Catholic Church in the way it responded to people's needs. And so while I was committed to the Catholic doctrine, I found the practice sometimes failed as people behaved. I was invited to a dance. Actually, it was a goddess-oriented religious celebration up on South Mountain. And being interested in religious studies, I of course wanted to go. So I went, and I had been aware that it was a pagan service, but it was women-oriented. It was a goddess spirituality called Dianic paganism. And of course, all of those words were sort of scary to me. But when I went, I found, I saw people there whom I knew. There was teachers from the local university. There was an attorney whom I knew well and had worked with. And I thought, well, now these are intelligent people. And I began to study the what is called Wicca, from which witchcraft comes from. And as I studied Wicca, I realized that religion didn't begin with Jesus. Religion didn't begin with Abraham. That religion existed in all societies for centuries before what the recordings in the scriptures. And as a result, because I do honor history and found this so new, I moved into the practice of Dianic Wicca and thoroughly enjoyed it. It did have its rites and rituals and practices, and not much in the way of theology, but certainly an appreciation for women and what women could do in Dianic Wicca, which is, of course, named after the goddess Diana. I practiced goddess spirituality for probably 15 years, maybe close to 20 years, and then I joined the Seroptimus, which is a women's service organization, and met a woman there who invited me to a circle. I knew circles from the goddess religion because we were all part of a coven or circle. And so, of course, my interest, my curiosity took me to this particular circle. And I wasn't sure what it was all about, except that it would be different, I was told. At this circle, I met a pastor, a woman who was a spiritualist. And there were just 13 of us, which I considered an interesting number. And she did readings for us. She communicated with those who had crossed over. And I was just floored by this. Ordinarily, I would have been put off, and when others have told me about this, I just discounted any religious group that met in some type of an office space on the corner, and there were only maybe 30 people there. But I discovered in myself a newfound respect for this type of religious group. This was a group that was first not Christian, and secondly, spiritualism as a religion is founded on the idea that when we cross over, our bodies die, that we continue to live our full personalities, likes and dislikes, just as we were as we lived on this earth. And the most important thing for me is that it had a way of dealing with or explaining what happens after death. Most religions have some kind of afterlife, but this was an assurance that people who had died, had passed over, were still present and very active in our lives. This was so reassuring to me. I had lost members of my family quite early, and because of it, I never talked about death, would not attend funerals, and just as my eyes were open to the history of religion, so was my mind opened to the reality that there is more to life here than I had imagined. One of the more difficult things with spiritualism and a real test of one's spiritual growth is being able to link in with those on the other side, and that requires meditation. Ever since I was a young postulant in the convent, I had problems with meditation. It was not long after I had been ordained that a friend invited me to a Soka Gakkai religious experience. And it was a form of Buddhism that's very popular here in the United States. And a big piece of Soka Gakkai is that we chant, and by chanting you join in with the universal song as it is. And Buddhism, it is a form of Buddhism, and it is so relaxing in a way. And I found that chanting had a way of helping me to calm down and to do some meditation simply by chanting Nam Myoho Renge Kyo. I found that while some people might find different aspects of religion helpful to them, for instance, many people practice yoga, for me it was the chanting. And so a friend helped me to get a butsudan, a small altar, and beads and the book, and to start practicing Japanese. I don't know the religion Japanese, I'm just following along, reciting Japanese. And I still find it a very soothing way to incorporate some meditation into my daily schedule. So again, looking back on my life as a strict Catholic, and then moving to paganism, which lifted me out of Catholicism, so that I could begin to look at religion differently, and then moving into spiritualism, which is yet another level, aspect of religious and philosophical thought that was supported by the practice of chanting in Buddhism. And these all, in a way, help me to address all the different aspects of my spiritual life, to help me understand myself. And it has brought great peace to me. I see these different aspects as all part of a tapestry that come together to help me to be whole, to be developed, and to be willing to keep on growing spiritually. Now, I understand that you've never had a reading before, am I correct?
I have had a reading.
You have?
Many years ago.
Many years ago. Well, you know, during a reading, it's really important that I am able to provide to you evidence that I am actually speaking to a spirit. And you're the one who would either validate it or say, I have no idea what you're talking about. But at the same time, when a medium does a reading, it's like, do you remember in the old days when 12 o'clock on the TV set and there would be that static and after the Pledge of Allegiance or the song or whatever? At that time, we all understood that you're not going to get clarity. The same thing happens when communicating with spirits, because they operate at a very quick vibration. You know, sometimes people will say, oh, all of a sudden I got cold in here. Or they might just feel, something about this. Yes, something. But at the same time, because their vibration is so quick, compared to our vibration, well, it can be very slow, particularly as we get older. But what we need to do, what I need to do, is to be able to raise my vibration, and they have to know how to lower their vibration. But there's still going to be that, I call it the 30% window, where the communication is going to get very staticky. And so that's why I always consider a reading excellent if I get 70% correct. Because the Spirit is trying to communicate to me and will be giving me things that will hopefully help you to recognize who that Spirit is. And meanwhile, I'm using my own intelligence and trying to keep my vibration rolling so that I understand what is happening. okay?
That's never been explained to me before. It's very interesting.
It is. And we all have this opportunity. When I first heard somebody say, you all can do this, I thought, right, sure. As a former Catholic, I was like, I don't think so. But I have been in classes, and we also do what is called self-development, where we will sit in meditation and just try to build up that vibration. And so being a medium involves sitting in the power. We call it sitting in the power, or just reaching out to spirit, to allow spirit to be part of my own system, so that we don't meditate in order to pray. We meditate to listen. And that's, the better we are at that, the more practice we have, then the more skilled we will appear. And so we make a promise that, first of all, we'll only do mediumship when we're healthy, we've not been drinking, smoking, doing damage to our bodies, because we have to be present. We have to be present. So that's what I'm going to be doing.
Okay.
I don't know you at all.
No.
And so this will be, I would say, a great opportunity, because if I say something, or if I ask you, does that make sense, or do you own this? Only say yes or no.
Okay.
Don't go off and tell me all about Uncle George and how he did this and that, because then that's not evidential for me. I have to get this from spirit. And that's the difference between a psychic and a medium. The psychic will be able to reach into you, and a lot of my readings begin with a psychic exchange while I sort of warm up. But then the medium will reach out to spirit for a message, for identification. That's the difference. Okay. We say every medium is a psychic, but not every psychic is a medium. So, all that clear?
Clear.
Great, excellent. Okay. You know, it's very interesting because there are several people who have stepped forward. It was like the minute I walked in the door, the room was full. So there are several people who have come forward. Among the group, there is a lady, and this lady is, she's rather pretty, and I think she's on your mother's side of the family, but it's not your mother. This is somebody off to the side. This would be like an aunt or an older cousin. She's presenting herself as an older person. And this person, I'm going to refer to her as an aunt. It had lived a very happy life, despite all the trouble she had. She had a difficult life, but she was one who always had a positive attitude. And she sort of was like the glue of the family. You've heard that expression. In other words, she communicated with people, shared stories and the news of it, but was always positive. And family members and friends knew that she was going through some kind of, she had like a condition. And I'm not clear on that, but it was something she lived with for a long time. And she was truly fond of you. She was very fond. You favor her in some way. And I'll figure out if it's, you sort of look like her because you have the same coloring, dark hair, dark eyes, but, and your smile lines, very smooth. Then she has the same. But she is also, she said, you have personality traits similar to hers. That I have to ask, are you a Libra?
No.
You have Libra in your birth, whatever you call that.
I love that sign.
You're awesome, because you do have a sense of orderliness, and you don't like being in a fight or people being unpleasant or angry with each other. But if you get pushed too far, out come the claws. And you're quite capable of standing up for yourself. She was too, but she hesitated because she lived in a time where you would be called very nasty names if you disagreed with somebody. But as she grew older, she became more forthright in terms of saying what she liked and what she didn't like. But she what do you call that? She cherished you. She cherished you because you were her favorite. She never said this, but everybody knew that you were the one that she liked. And again, I think she sees you as carrying on her personality, her contribution to the family. That you're you're like a clone. You're your aunt's clone. Now, so far, can you take this?
Oh, yes.
You're shaking your head, but I never know what that always means. Okay, great. Okay. She's here because she says, first of all, you're here. And if you're here, she's here. She is with you a great deal. And as you have gone through your trials and tribulations, and you've had them, that she also is there. She's always kind of nudging you. When, for instance, let's say I don't know your husband at all except for that one exchange, but let's say you get so angry at him. Why can't you put your clothes in the hamper? But there's that little nudge that says to you, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. Thank your aunt. Your aunt is there saying, let it go. She says one of the things that she has learned is that life is too important to worry about the little things. And that you learned this. And she likes to think that she had a hand. She's taking full credit for everything that she's done to guide you on your way, because you have had a hard time. She is also saying that the path that you are following is solid to a point, that you're capable of far deeper thinking. She thinks that she is suggesting that you do more reading. And there's something about the reading that I'm not quite getting, whether you don't like to read or you see it as a time waster or whatever it may be, but you're shaking your head yes. So
never finish a book.
Okay. She says, she's suggesting read the last chapter first. At least you know where you're headed. And that gives you, and then you can fill in some of the blanks yourself. She said, they're just not that mysterious. There's another person coming in right now. This person is a younger man. He's like military. He's wearing a uniform, but I'm not seeing what the uniform is. He's presenting himself as maybe 25, 28. He is a relative, not in your immediate family. He is also, he's very grateful to you. He said of everybody in the family, you were always nice to him. not everything. He got picked on a lot, but you were always there to stand up for him. So this must be somebody who you grew up with or saw frequently enough as you were growing up yourself. Now, are you able to take this much?
That doesn't ring a bell, but...
Okay, I want you to just think about it. He said if you go look at some of the pictures when you were a kid, because he's presenting himself as young.
Okay.
Young people tend to do that. They present themselves at their very best.
Okay.
So this is what is coming, and so he may have been older, because I get the sense that you weren't too far apart in age. Okay, so he says if you look at some of the pictures, you know, when we were growing up, the cousins would come over or something. Okay, he's in there. He's in there. He said, you have lost track of him. And he crossed over during the early part of the Gulf War when he was like National Guard or a weekend warrior, they called them. And so he said it was a terrible time for him. He had some kind of a business, a practice, well, not so much a medical thing, but I'm getting the word commission. So he may have been a salesman that really had to get his own contacts or develop his portfolio, if you will. And when he was sent off to war, war keeps coming up, doesn't it? So this must be the Gulf War.
I do have a cousin that was in the war. So I really enjoyed this session. No one has ever explained to me what a medium is or the difference between a medium and a psychic. Although I did have sessions with both many years ago, that to me was very valid. It was very a value to me. And the part about being a peacemaker, I have tears in my eyes because that's the type of person that I am. And I do not like confrontation. I do not like when couples bicker at each other. It makes me very uncomfortable. So you were right about that. About the reading, that was right also, because it's very rare for me to finish a book. So I get what I need from those books through the few chapters that I do read. I read a lot of metaphysical, Wayne Dyer.
Read the last chapter.
Yes, I'll start reading the last chapter. Yeah. So anyways, what you've said has been very validating. Family members, I had some favorite aunts, and my cousin that was in the war, we got very close after he came back. He had some situations, and anybody that's gone through the military has had some pretty bad stories, and so I was always there for him. So thank you for that. And
Thanks you.
Yeah, thank you for providing, keeping our safety. His name was Rudy.